Hello. Everybody hear me okay? Awesome. Thank you for being a part of this event. I am really happy to be here with some wonderful people talking about something that's very important to me and I think is for the greater good of our industry and food. Have you hold that guy?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. So I'm excited to moderate. A little bit about me. My name is Zachary Pacleb. I'm one of the founding members of Pidgin Cooperative, formerly known as Brothers & Co. We used to have a hot food stand at the farmers markets, and we're working towards opening our own restaurant. We just got keys a couple weeks ago, so we're really excited about that. Thank you. It's a lot. We're terrified, but we love it. My brother and I transitioned our business that we own together into a worker-owned cooperative over the past couple of years. It's definitely been a journey, but for us, it was really a way to sort of carry on our values that we sort of already established into the new phase of our business as we move into a restaurant space. So we're trying to really challenge some of the existing frameworks by transitioning to a worker-owned cooperative that exist in our industry. And really, our industry is one that is made to feed the community. We're here to nourish. We're here to help. We're here to support. And some of the existing models have just been pretty detrimental, I think, to communities and societies at large that, you know, now with us in the age of information and be able to move into exploring new ways to do business, that I'm really excited to be on this panel with three people that have different models for the future and alternative business models that prioritize people, planet, and profit. So I think that I'm really excited and you know, I think that as we move forward, we're hoping that I think all of us could be resources for the next generation and the generations to come about how to do business in this industry in a much better way. Things that are, you know, less exploitative and are just generally more supportive, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to nourish. So I am really happy to be on a panel with these three individuals. This is Efrem from Boona Coffee. He's got a certified B Corp. Devra Gartenstein, who, funny enough, when we were looking to transition our business into a worker-owned cooperative, Devra Patty Pan Cooperative was assigned to us as our business coach. And so we took that as our first affirmation, and we were really excited about that. And then Justin Smith of Catalyst Kitchens, which is a nonprofit social enterprise. So again, thank you guys for starting this conversation, having this conversation with me. I guess if we could just go down the line, and we'll start with you, Efrem, if that's okay. Sure. What is your company? Feel free to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you're doing. Oh, yeah.
Test. All right. My name is Efrem Fesaha, CEO and founder of Boona Coffee. We are, well, I guess it's probably best to start with the name itself. So Boon or Boona is how we say coffee in East Africa. Boon, more common in Eritrea, Boona in Ethiopia, and then the word coffee itself is derived from a region in Ethiopia called Kaffa. And Kaffa, Ethiopia, is the birthplace of Arabica coffee. And that was kind of the start for me, is kind of that intentionality as to where coffee comes from, because that history is really not shared and known, that coffee started in Africa. Sometimes it's this thought of it coming out of Italy or something, I don't know. But wanted to change that narrative to help with that story. My origin is from there, and in 2011 I got to spend some time there, not with any desires to get into coffee, but that's just what happened. And between both the traditional kind of side of coffee that we've had for 800 years there, and seeing how coffee is done here growing up here in Seattle, I wanted to see kind of a convergence, kind of the two coming together, but doing it more intentionally. And so for me, descendant of Africa, It was important that I sourced from there, but if I did so, I wanted to do it better than what I was familiar with within the industry. And that was the starting point for us. And I'm excited to share more and speak more, but I won't be too long-winded. So I'll pass it along.
Hey, I'm Devra Gartenstein. I'm the founder of Patty Pan Cooperative. I'm also a food and farm business coach with Business Impact Northwest. So I founded Patty Pan as a sole proprietorship in 1997, and then by about 2012, I was just feeling really tired. And so I figured I could sell the business, but I really liked it, or I could keep doing things the way I'd been doing them, but I was burnt out. I had a great crew. They were really invested even before they became owners. And so I asked if they were interested in working with me to make the business into a cooperative. And when I asked people, it was a lot of one-on-one conversations. 2 separate people cried when I asked them if they wanted to become owners. So it really felt like the right thing. Patty Pan we're Seattle's oldest farmers market concession. So we've been selling hot, ready-to-eat food at Seattle area farmers markets since the late 90s. And then in the last 8 or 10 years, we've also diversified, and we sell packaged food products. We make our own tortillas, and we wholesale them. And we make tamales, and we make burritos, and also we're launching some quesadillas as wholesale products. And the quesadillas are our signature item at the farmers market.
Hi, I'm Justin. I'm executive director with Catalyst Kitchens. I do just want to shout out, both of their food businesses are amazing. If you have never tried their tortillas, try their tortillas. If you have never been to Boona Coffee down in Renton, you need to go there and get one of their amazing drinks. I am a happy supporter of both of you. What Catalyst Kitchens does is we support more than 100 nonprofits around the country that run social enterprise businesses and base job training programs within those. So you might know of Fair Start in Seattle or Project Feast down in Kent. We also have Kindred Kitchen up in Everett, or Osho down in Tumwater, just south of Olympia. Those are the 4 closest members. And then imagine 100 more of those spread all around the country. And each of those, besides basing job training as a way that, okay, this business exists to enrich the community in this way, help someone climb out of poverty who might be unsheltered, an immigrant or a refugee coming out of incarceration, youth that's dropped out of high school, neurodivergent, someone with an intellectual or developmental disability. Our members are serving all those populations, as well as trying to build businesses that also have other mission aspects to them, whether it's supporting local farmers, whether it is using revenues from the business to also support hunger relief efforts. And so our work at the Catalyst Kitchens at the national level is to help them build better businesses and help take business models that are working in one place and get those adopted in other places, as well as programmatic models for people in need of the job training.
Again, very excited that these models exist. Devra and I are sort of on the same page, trying to transition our businesses to something that is more equitable and share the, share the fruits, but also of our labors, but also the responsibility and the decision-making power is something that's been really, I think, imperative to making the workplace more enjoyable. I think everybody wants to show up to their place of work and be able to have a great time and be productive. And I think that's sort of part of our inherent nature as human beings. We want to just be able to be productive, but it's not always easy in this the industry that can also have, some very toxic environments or some top-down models that can be very oppressive to the people that participate and put in a lot of the blood, sweat, and tears. So it's really great to see that all of you have kind of taken different steps and different approaches and different models too. I think is the really exciting part, that there's a variety of ways that we can start to shift ownership and business within this industry to only be better for the community. I guess starting with you, Efrem, one of the things that I don't know a whole lot about B Corp, so I just did a little bit of research, but why is it that the transparency and accountability are really important to you as you develop this model, specifically within coffee, specifically, given what you were saying, the sort of the long history and the origins of coffee as a beverage? Why was it important for you to have that level of transparency and also as an educator, like show the community that this is the way that the model should be? Or
Yeah, I mean, I love to start from a place of I don't know. And coming into coffee, there was a lot I didn't know. There was a lot in business I didn't know. There was a lot about coffee industry I didn't know. So there was so much I didn't know. And I had this crazy idea, crazy dream of going about coffee differently in this city, which is the capital of coffee, which is crazy.
As we all do as small business owners too, right?
Yeah.
We want to do better than we know in some
without
way.
a doubt. And I think that, I didn't have this luxury of failing as well. So I was really adamant about the fact that what I don't know, I'm going to try studying and getting ahead of. And so the day I opened up our cafe in Renton, which was January 2019, was the first day of my MBA program. And it was also at Seattle U. And it was also another program that I was doing at UW, just to try absorbing as much information just so I don't F it up so bad. And obviously, even in that process, one, I burnt out. But at the same time, I realized that I'm not going to be able to do that. Now, specifically with B Corp, it was something that I had seen, I had heard about, and it became okay, there's a model, there's something there that audits, basically, that I'm just not gassing things up. I'm making it up, but I've got somebody I can kind of, one, learn from. Hey, these are bare minimums. This is the expectation, what you need to do, and this is where you lack at. This is how you could do it better. And even from, once again, going back to my desire to just quickly jump into school, to sit in class, just so I don't mess up the business, it comes from that same place of I want to do better. So look to someone that can guide you in that place. And I am one that likes to seek out mentors, I like to ask for advice, and I've got many peers in the industry, whether in coffee or just in general, in this supportive community that I have here in the Seattle area, greater Seattle area. I looked at B Corp as just that as well. Another mark by which I can kind of look to and say, okay, am I doing good? Am I doing the things that I am aspiring to do? Not that I'm going to be perfect at it, but I'm going to strive for that. And I think that B Corp provided that because they would look at things as okay, it's a for-profit business, but what is, your social impact? How do you measure that? We were just talking about that. Do you buy from war-torn countries? Do you buy from, pay premiums? Do you pay higher rates? Do you pay fair trade and above fair trade? What are you doing? And provide details to that. And to me, it's not that I was I needed that label to feel good, but I needed a North Star to at least guide me so that I don't, once again, F it up and I try to do good. That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
So,
can you speak to specific resources that you may have been able to, people that you worked with, organizations that you worked with that help you really kind of not only confirm the direction that you wanted to go, but you were able to utilize and lean on when you had those questions of am I doing this right?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like you had your mission is sort of in your heart and that's in your mind and you were able to see that, but sometimes navigating the sort of the bureaucracies can be challenging for many ways, and the hurdles that we have to overcome as small business owners, as as blessed as our business models may be, that extra step can be challenging. So,
Yeah, it can be for sure. I think there was two. I think of two that come to mind quickly. One was when it came to sourcing from Burundi. We work with her name is Janine. She's the name of her business is JNP Coffees. She's of Burundi's descent. She is the daughter of coffee farmers, and so she's over her life has kind of helped establish more coffee producing co-ops within Burundi, especially women-owned and operated ones. She helped establish the International Women's Coffee Alliance there in Burundi. And then she's also based in Baltimore. So like I've got quick access to her. And so she was kind of my guide as to like, okay, someone that's doing right in her country, trusted, respected, pays above, and does good work there. And then also just kind of her as well, like leading in the coffee space, she was like a good guide for me. Now, she's not necessarily B Corp certified, but it was like a guide for me. The other one was Mir, which is, they make tumblers and things. But I've met a lot of their team, and when I was actually going through the actual process, I would reach out to them and just like, hey, I'm trying to figure this part out, because it is a long process. I think it took about minimum 6 months and probably like close to 100 hours, probably of just focused getting things done and gathering documentation. But I would say those two, Janine as a North Star as to kind of how to do coffee better, and then Mir from a side of just getting that B Corp, whenever you're at a roadblock, them.
They had established themselves, right?
They had, and they had done things like the 1% of revenue, things like that, very creative ways of like, giving back. So, yeah.
Very cool. Thank you. Yeah, beautiful. I guess, moving to Devra. So like I said, we had previous conversations, and I know a little bit about why you decided to transition. We have my brother and I, who's back there. Hi, brother. Hi, Erica. And another one of our co-op members, Erica. We love doing what we do, but the food space is challenging for a lot of ways because you feel like you're kind of putting your heart and soul into it, and you're putting in a lot of hours, a lot of physicality. And I'm curious to know how was your process for conversion, and then what really pursued you to I shared a little bit. What pursued you to seek out an alternative model as you move forward?
Yeah, so our process for conversion was basically reckless. I know, like, Zach, you've talked about
Best way.
Taking about 1.5 years to convert to a co-op. We did it in about 2 months. And we didn't really know what we were doing. There are a lot of resources out there. We didn't use any of them until we were about 4 years in. And then at that point, I had a lot of time freed up because I was no longer running the business by myself. And I trained as a peer advisor for worker cooperatives through the U.S. Federation of Worker Co-ops, and I also did a certificate in co-op management through formerly Pinchot University. And in the course of learning all that, I realized that our bylaws were all wrong, our structure was all wrong, so we kind of backtracked and redid it. And fortunately, we were resilient enough to make that work. As far as how to make this work in the food space, I like to think that we're creating a positive feedback loop where we take care of the business so that the business takes care of us. And even, we cannot pay people enough to live in this area. It seems like no matter how much we pay people, the costs are always going up. But I think what we have going for us is that there's a real trust in the fact that where a traditional business will try to pay people as little as possible to make things work, I think our members and even our non-member employees really get that we pay as much as we can.
Justin, your model is like, I think for anybody that's been in the kitchen and been a chef, I feel like you get to that point where, again, you're wanting to feed people, you're wanting to be creative, and you can find yourself 5, 6, 7 years down the line just trying to really understand like why it's so difficult when you're trying to do something that is supposed to be so supportive and again nourishing for the community and other people. And then you also have people that have had just terribly difficult lives, of no fault of their own. And I think some people in society have a hard time trying to work them in, maybe because of the reasons that you stated. But why was it important for you to be a part of Catalyst Kitchens, this opportunity that creates opportunities for people to be able to have proper coaching, one-on-one time, but are also, again, doing something that is good for the community and in a way that opens up that level of accessibility to more people that would maybe struggle towards it or like have a hard time fitting in? Like, why was that important to you when joining Catalyst?
Well, I mean, that's part of my story as well. Is I've always worked in the food service industry. That was my first job, washing dishes in a retirement home. Worked my way up through a number of restaurants, and then before I moved onto this Catalyst Kitchen side, was a chef trainer in multiple programs. One on the west side of Chicago, one here at Fair Start in Seattle. And so knowing and having gotten to see for decades of my life the power of the food industry to provide opportunities to people that just wanted to come in and work hard enough and learn the systems and learn the ways of moving through kitchens, that is just a beautiful industry to help people rebuild and uplift themselves through hard work, through jobs, through a great industry that I know I believed in because it had provided me with my whole career. But I do think that's been an interesting evolution of the social enterprises in our network over the years, and especially post-COVID, is looking at ways where we kind of shifted our mentality from, okay, let's just meet the labor demand. Let's pump folks out. We'll get them into jobs. Those jobs will be entry level, and that's enough of a next step for them. But really, we've got a lot of members in our network now looking much more so at either how are we preparing people to maybe even launch their own small businesses coming out of these programs? How do we build equity in this industry for people as a better way for them to lift themselves up? And I'm already thinking sitting here that I need to do more education to my members about cooperatives. I don't know that you will fully recommend that. But I think that's a tremendous way for more food businesses to build equity for people that work at them. And then additionally, us needing to do more to lean in with the employers that hire people after they graduate out of our programs at these social enterprise restaurants. You mentioned it at the beginning, there's a lot of, well-known toxic aspects of this industry that, for better or worse, are stereotypes of kitchens that people go into. And so how do we help more restaurants and more businesses like our own by the people out there be great places to work, be trauma-informed, and be places that, in terms of everyone else's bottom lines, retain and grow staff and don't have to deal with turnover costs and have tremendous loyal employees that make those businesses hum? How do we get that whole ecosystem working? And that's a lot of where our thought has gone to the last few years.
On that note of, do any of you have any specific challenges that you've had to overcome? Maybe not necessarily personally, but as you've made the decision to explore these new models, is there any challenge specifically that stands out that you are glad that you were able to overcome, or maybe still be kind of struggling with as far as the direction that you need to move in? Or has there been any standout challenges along the way? that are worth sharing, that could be insightful for people who are sort of in the same space of trying to decide how they want to operate moving forward? Potentially big question, so I apologize, but.
Yeah, one comes to mind right now that I'm grappling with, so I'm happy to share it, is that there's a new administration, so some stuff is happening. And I think the first thing that happened was that, it was like Colombia was about to get hit with tariffs. It's like 25% increase of tariffs on them. And it shot coffee prices through the roof. And it's interesting because one would think that, oh, that's beneficial to the producer. It's not really. It's all speculation. So it's all the market. It's just stock market stuff. And so I think that, because we approach coffee from a side of, fair trade, above fair trade, what kind of programs are there on the grounds that, whether it's second payments on premiums and things like that are more creative in payments and for the producers. We try sharing that information with consumers, but our distributors and others, and I think that from a consumer side, like I believe that a more educated consumer is a better consumer, right? Because you're more aware of what it is that you're buying. So that's great, it's more meaningful to you, and in this time too. So as that's happening, as this increase in this, changes are coming, it's having to share that even more so because telling that story will allow sustainability for all sides while still educating on kind of what that means as well. Because true, at roughly this 25% increase and such, that means that if you are selling to a distributor or to a grocery store, you're pretty much probably going to either have to increase pricing immediately or you're going to fall out. And that is a reality that a lot of coffee roasters, producers are currently facing, and having to communicate that and share that information a little bit more. And especially, I think that there's obviously people that buy coffee. It's very exploitive. History is that, is exploitation. And so they'll probably find a way. But anyone that's trying to do it right or better is gonna really feel it. And so I think that's me kind of selfishly saying what it is that most of us are feeling, at least those in the space that we're in within coffee, and having to kind of navigate through that. So that is a challenge that we are facing right now. So
yeah. I think that it's really interesting that you say that because I think again, being in this industry has shown me a lot on my personal journey, but then kind of understanding that me at this point, I did this because I was passionate about it. I was super curious about food when I was young. My brother and I sitting and watching the Food Network and Iron Chef and just being enamored and glued to the screen thinking about those, just the fire and the knives and all of that kind of stuff. And then as we've kind of grown up and really understanding that this, so much of this industry has been built upon people who maybe didn't have the choice to actually be doing the job that they did, and really trying to understand how reshaping the industry and how we operate can maybe undo some of those ties and those, and create new opportunities and new models for everybody within it to thrive, because we're in it because we love food, right? And we love coffee, and we love being able to see that smile on the customer's face when we provide something for them. But then I guess, Devra, to you too, we've had this conversation. You shared a little bit about the challenges you did through the transition. But is there anything else that kind of really stood out or that could be insightful on your journey that they might want to know?
Yeah, I think there's a myth about worker cooperatives that everybody needs to be equally engaged. And over time, I've learned that that's not necessarily the case. There are people who bring things that are valuable, even if it isn't as much as somebody else brings. And I think understanding what each person brings, and also getting away from a situation where the people who contribute the least have the loudest voices. And I think it's something we've learned to recognize. So yeah, everybody doesn't need to be equally engaged, but the people who are less engaged shouldn't have more of a say just because they like to talk. Another thing that I found as someone who had ran a sole proprietorship business for many years before starting to work as a cooperative, getting people on board and understanding what it's like to run a business. When you come into a cooperative as a worker cooperative, you're kind of in this in-between space where you're used to working as an employee. Now you're a business owner, but you also pretty much know you're going to get your wage either way. And as someone who owned sole proprietorship businesses for a long time, that wasn't necessarily the case. And I think I was in a position where I was sharing ownership and ownership-making decisions with people who had never lied awake, until the wee hours thinking about cash flow. And I think, it just created a different dynamic. And we've been a cooperative for 12 years now, and a bunch of our founding members are still there. And I think we have finally managed to get that kind of mindset, the business owner mindset, to be a thing for everybody.
Something I will share, like our journeys have been very different. I think in regards to forming our co-op, other than, we used to be a business, now we're transitioning, or we have transitioned our business. But education is like a huge part of, I think, what it means to be sort of running and operating a worker-owned cooperative. The aspect of educating the staff and the team so that we're sort of all on the same page. We all have the same resources. We're all looking at the same things. And it's not this top-down approach that is kind of leaves some people just guessing as to what's actually happening in the business. And I think that's something that, my brother and I have really, like any small business owner, you wear a lot of hats and you hold a lot of things. And learning where those things can either be handed off, or again, kind of like you're talking about, knowing somebody who has, can take that and run with that and really be able to maybe even excel further than either of us were able to, is something that, is a really important part of a cooperative model, is seeing the strengths that exist within the people that, you're working with, and learning how we can all kind of work collectively better and make decisions better, so that ultimately our product, our service will be better for that overall. Please.
Yeah, and I think what I'm getting at is that there's just so much you can train people, and then with the hands-on work, over time people start to connect with it, but it's a process.
Yeah, same question to you, Justin. Like, what other than some of the things that you shared, are there any specific hurdles or challenges, or like a specific, anecdote that you could share that really solidified your decisions in working with a non-profit social enterprise, or just put you on the path, or affirmed your path rather?
Yeah, I think we get to look at a lot of different models of social enterprise, a lot of different food businesses all around the country that are in our network. And I think a lesson that I keep being taught over and over in working with them is that the strongest models are always built on where you build the best community around your business. The best way to do it is to get feedback from all of your employer partners who are leaning in and telling you, well, here's what we need, here's how we can train students, here's how we can help create the best ecosystem of food service businesses in our city, as well as leaning in and listening to the people in need of your services, in need of training. Here's what we want. Here's the skills we want to get out of things. I think one of our strongest members at that practice, at building good, strong community around their program, there's a youth program down in New Orleans called Cafe Reconcile. And on the strength of their practices, they built a really amazing restaurant. It is really humming. They got named, a top 50 restaurant in the country last year in the New York Times. And that's with every 3 months, literally their entire staff turns over and they're bringing in new youth from the community. But they built such a strong culture there of investment, of listening to folks, that the chef is able to bring in this new staff to be trained up every few weeks, and they put out beautiful, amazing food. And so I think always coming back to and relying on how can your business be a part of a community and be part of strengthening people at every point in the process. Because otherwise, like Efrem was talking about, with tariffs, with prices going up, and everything just can become extractive at every level if it gets boiled down that way, as opposed to community building at every level.
Fantastic. I mean, yeah, this is. I think we're all fighting some pretty tough battles and steep hills to climb up, but I'll steal something from a different host. But what would leave you? What's leaving you with optimism towards these types of models being successful in our industry? And kind of what examples could you see for us re-envisioning what it means to be in our industry in a better way? What kind of things are leaving you, are gonna make you smile, at the end of the day, and that keep you pushing forward? And we can start with you, Justin, since you have the mic, if you want to.
So what gives me hope, essentially? Yeah.
Hope. Oh, sorry. What gives you hope, and how do you envision these new models being able to take root and do better?
It's not a ton of hope going around these days.
Fair.
Yeah. But I think what does give me hope is any time we can be in a space like this with a ton of people who all are doing this work not necessarily because it makes us the most and best money in the world or is the easiest work, but because food and the growing, the selling, the cooking, the serving of it is something that gives us all incredible passion. That's why I know that this type of work, this model of social enterprise, basing our results in things beyond money, in community and the impact that we make, that's how I know that this is clearly a direction that this industry can go. Because anytime you see a business in this world that boils things down to just making money off of people, that's not where the consumers want to go. That's not where people want to be and spend their money. It's always about, where do you feel the passion? Where does that come across in the food that you buy and purchase and consume? And I think that's what gives me hope about the future of this model in this industry.
And I'll say, we can call it out for what it is. It is capitalism that we're all living under the boot of. And I think we're all trying to fight our way within it. It's hard to use the tools to take down the system itself, the tools that live within it to take down the system itself. But I guess, Dev, same question. We're in the same boat, trying to build something that is very community oriented and is a very a team effort through and through. And just curious.
Well, Patty Pan started as a farmer's market concession. and the farmers markets are still over half of our business. And I'd say the markets give me hope because I think, even there are very few farmers markets that are actually structured as co-ops, but I think they function as co-ops. You especially feel that if you do winter markets. Having a successful winter market depends on having a critical mass of vendors, even when it's dumping rain or when there's sideways rain or crazy wind. So I'd say the farmers market community gives me hope.
I will echo that for sure. If there's any farmers market folks out there, I know I've already seen a lot of you. Johnny's giving me the salute. Yeah, what's up? I want to before you, I just want to echo the fact that like as a chef, I got into it, entranced by the beautiful plates of food and the really fun ingredients and stuff, but ultimately the farmers markets for me definitely changed my perspective on what it means to be a chef in this industry, what it means to prepare food, like thinking about sort of in the food waste presentation they were giving, really seen as, I don't think any chef necessarily signs up to be an educator, unless that's a parallel passion, but we are also tasked with teaching people how to consume things in a more equitable way, in more delicious ways, and like that's something that has wide and far reach just based upon the fact that everybody eats 3 times a day, and the more that we can really be a part of that process to help not only guide them but like work collectively to make sure that we're all on the same page, that there's a better way to be doing things. I think that is a great place to start, and the markets definitely showed us that we're simply just not to say a cog in the machine, but like we're a link in the chain, and we're not by ourselves. We can rely on these people. I don't know if I've ever met anybody more generous and more like comforting than farmers. And I say that, like it's just been, I met Ivy over there at the WSDA stand. I met Kate there. I met Johnny. I met so many people within the markets that I like love and hold dear, and I think it's just it's a beautiful place to start, for sure. Your turn.
Okay. I'd say 2 things. One, the energy of just being here with you all and the intention by which you all walked in this door with to hear about folks doing things good and how to do it better. And honestly, just being in community with you all and just being able to spend time here with this panel, I leave inspired, even under these trying times. And so I'm grateful to all of you and for coming in and honestly for everything a part of this day, because it is tough, but I think we're all, at least here, wanting to see better within our industries. The second one I would say is that specifically for coffee, it's changing. I'm hopeful. So, if you think about America's history with coffee, canned coffee and, dark and heavy and such, and then it goes to, folks down the street, and then and then we get to a place now where I think people are asking more questions about coffee. Where is it coming from? How is it produced? And once again, I think that the more knowledge gained, the better it is for our industry, because it puts the pressure on the roasters. Why are you selecting that coffee? Why are you going that way? And I mean, I'll be honest with you. If y'all can't go into a place and they can't give you answers, that's a problem. And so it's where I see coffee moving, and I'm hopeful with that. And I think that it puts pressure on those bigger brands to hopefully change or to make better decisions about how. Because true, like Boona is but a grain of sand on this long beach, right? And so, our impact is very small. But I think that if those questions start coming from y'all, then we're going to see the industry, specifically at least in coffee, I know, improve and change for the better. And I leave hopeful with that. So thank you all for engaging and being here. And thank you.
I think before we have a few more minutes, but just want to open it up for a quick Q&A unless anybody has anything else that they want to share specifically, or thoughts, feelings, emotions. Yeah.
You mentioned your role as educators, and I'm curious, this is specifically for Justin, but the entire group as well. How do you incorporate food waste prevention or diversion into your programming, if at all, or could you be? And Devra, I know you do lean production, so there might be other ways, but again, to all of you.
Thank you.
As a question for me, I mean, there's a ton of different approaches to that, right? We have 104 different members, 104 different strategies, but food waste is always a big conversation because when you have restaurants that are also teaching kitchens, you get more food waste. And the fight to try to reduce it is always there. And also a lot of our members are running hunger relief operations within what they do. And so they're pulling in and diverting food waste from within their local ecosystems to turn that into meals for people, to turn that even into paid catering or value-added products for people, for our members who are working out of food banks. And so it's, I don't think I could explain all the different ways that members are approaching it, but it's a whole stream within a community of practice that we run across our many kitchens across the country, is thinking about how to reduce food waste within within the revenue generating food businesses, as well as how to be a hub for the diversion of food waste for hunger relief programs. And so there's ways that we're tackling it on both sides, and then also having to teach students going through these programs about food waste and how necessary it is to be adept at limiting it, at working around it once they go out and are hired into restaurants within their community. And so I would say that's a lot of the ways that we're looking at food waste kind of touching all the different areas that we're working with in our member programs. And we always are trying to partner with great organizations out there like Refed or like Food Shifts out of Oakland that do specific work around repurposing food waste. Any other thoughts on food waste?
Anybody else? No.
Yeah, for us, we think about it where we spend the most, honestly, is on the coffee side. And so there's a lot of water waste. And so we were really intentional about how much natural processed coffees we purchase. So natural coffee is that basically it just sits in the sun. So it's sun dried basically, versus it going down a little stream and someone has to scrub it off. And that water is just waste. It can't be used for anything. And so we've always said, we want to have natural coffees, but we're trying to measure how much more. So as we're growing our coffee consumption or how much coffee we're using, we're making sure that we have a certain amount of it allocated to natural coffees as well. I love natural coffees. They're a little bit funkier, really fruity, really sweet. It's also something that impacts the producers too. So for example, in Kenya, for the last 3 years, we had been purchasing a particular coffee called Rui Rui Ru. And it was 230 farmers who got together that were trying to build a washing station. So eventually, so they can process that type of coffee as well. So for 3 years, it was just natural coffees so that they can invest and then be able to produce that washing station. So it's another income stream for them as well. And so it's one about access for the producer and what they can do easier until they get to like the size where they can afford a washing station of their own to process coffee. But then also just about the waste as well and how much natural versus wash processed coffee we take, which is hopefully, I did a good enough job explaining the two, but yeah, so that's something there.
Just from I guess I'll share my 2 cents if that's okay. But we've spent some time just developing processes in our kitchen that allow us to full product utilization, but also being at the farmers markets, really understanding that the sort of the micro seasons that come about, and also being sort of a conduit for food to just be produced. There's access to kind of seconds and other products that, may not be picturesque that we all know and maybe would be in photos or videos in the grocery store or whatever, but really understanding that depending on how you're going to actually utilize the product in a recipe, some of that superficial stuff doesn't actually matter. And so really understanding the versatility of the product that you're actually utilizing so that you can get the most out of it, and you can, say, leave the picturesque vegetable or whatever for the regular consumer that wants to have that. But from our standpoint, again, like we're producing at such a high scale or high volume sometimes that we do know far better on what we can and cannot use just through trial and error. And that's been really helpful for, I think, our process as well. Not only helping our food cost, but also in terms of sort of creativity and sort of exploration and all of the different things that we can do. So, yeah, definitely a super important part.
Yeah, so Patty Pan's signature product is a grilled vegetable quesadilla. And we like to say that the menu stays the same, but the ingredients change. So back to what Zach was saying about buying, say, surplus at the end of the market day. A lot of times we base what's going into next week's quesadillas we base that on what farmers have had unsold at the end of a market day. And I think a lot of these farmers, before they were selling it to us, they were bringing it back and throwing it on the compost pile. And now we buy it from them at a price that works for them and works for us, and also allows us to keep our prices down somewhat.
Any other questions so far? Oh, got one in the back. Coming.
I understand that Washington State has the most progressive law for employee-owned companies in the nation. And I'm wondering what you all are doing to help educate the state about the potential both for funding and organizing these cooperatives around the state, and ESOPs and ESOTs.
That's a great question.
Yeah. What am I doing? I mean, I guess the main thing we're doing is being out there doing this, and I think setting an example to some extent, like showing that it's possible. And the longer the business stays around as a worker co-op, the more of an example it is.
I'll be honest, I don't know too much about that, but I do have some internal things that what we do is we put some years, we say, hey, after a certain amount of years coming into ownership. But I don't know that program specifically to give a specific, so. Oh, okay, it's new, so, okay.
I know that through our journey, we definitely learned a lot, and there are definitely some resources out there. Happy to share anything that we know, but I think Devra probably makes the best example is we, by our success, by more models of our success, we are able to push the viability and the visibility forward for these different types of models to be successful. I know that we're one of maybe 2 worker-owned cooperative restaurants, that will be in Seattle. Mark from Jude's Old Town is the only other one that we really know and have had communication with, and that doesn't seem like a lot, right? 2 in the thousands that exist here, and but as successful as we can be, and really trying to hold it down and be, I guess really strategic in how we operate, but also really figuring out what works best and having those collective conversations to, hope or allow our success to kind of grow and continue to gain traction can only really benefit, I guess, the state as a whole, but the country as a whole, the industry as a whole. So, there are resources out there for worker-owned cooperatives specifically. The Northwest Cooperative Development Center is who we started with. We had some great coaching through Business Impact Northwest as well. And then I just shout out to People's Community Law, our lawyer that we came across, Cheryl Markham. We say this all the time to people we're having conversations with. Never would have thought we love our lawyer so much. She's been the sweetest. She was the architect of our cooperative bylaws, like the governing doctrine that we utilize and helps us make decisions and governs our day-to-day. So the resources are out there. If you want more specific, like direct resources or to reiterate, like happy to do that. Just find me. I'll be standing here probably after this talk. But yeah, there's a lot, and we hope that with more success in this sense, that the state and maybe at the federal level, there can be more resources allocated towards the development of it. I think government is not a bad thing when it works well for the people, but when it's not working well for all of the people, that it can be hard to trust it. And I think we all want to be able to trust that we're working and contributing towards something that benefits us. And so that's the nature of our game, I think. Thanks, Jay. Any other questions? I heard an applause. I think we're at the end of our time, but definitely want to put it out there for anybody else that may have one. Cool, sweet, awesome. My name's Zachary. Thank you, Efrem, Dev, and Justin. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you to the Good Food Connection space. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you all. Take care. Drive safe. Stay dry. All those good stuff.